When I kill your enjoyment, I talked just like this!
It's been a while since I've done a nitpick rant, and this one is a little bit different than some of the others because this one I actually feel is a bit more substantive than I usually get into. I still think it qualifies as a nitpick though, because it is one specific scene and it's one specific element of an otherwise gloriously great movie. So the movie I'm talking about is Who Framed Roger Rabbit? What a wonderful movie this is. It is so unique for so many reasons and on so many levels. But it's got one scene and one thing about it that really, I don't want to say traumatized me, but shook me as a kid. And it still does as an adult, to the point that I actually tend to skip this scene when I'm rewatching it. And because of this scene alone, I don't know how old I want my kid to be by the time I let her watch this. And I know some people have brought up, traumatic elements of this, and a lot of people cite Judge Doom. He does factor into this, but it's probably not the thing you're thinking. I think a lot of people think of Judge Doom, they think, when his eyes go all and the voice goes screechy and he's kind of psychotic, and no, I was fine with that. Didn't really bug me as a kid, didn't really traumatize me, or if it did, it didn't stick. Because it all turns out okay and he's defeated in the end. And as a kid, I always rolled with scary stuff as long as it was fine by the end. But there's an element in this film involving Judge Doom that isn't fine. That's actually really messed up. So I need to talk about that shoe. The shoe that gets dipped to demonstrate that Toons can be killed. I've got a couple of really big problems with this. First of all, it's kind of horrifying. I mean, it is legitimately, tragically, brutally, gratuitously vicious. You don't watch the thing melt, but you see it hit the dip and whimper and cry, and you can hear it dying. And then he pulls the glove out and it's just all this melted paint and ink, and it's horrifying. But that horrifyingness alone is not the reason I need to talk about this and I need to kind of really pick at this thing. It's because there's no justice for that shoe. And I'm not joking. I am dead serious. This bothers the hell out of me. There isn't even proper acknowledgement of what it is that just happened, because that shoe committed no crime. Yes, the judge, obviously he wants to just be able to dip any Toon he wants. Fine. He has a justification for going after Roger. Roger is suspected of murder. All that shoe did was nuzzle up against him. And in front of a room of cops, he dips this thing and kills it. And yes, I do understand that there's a certain analogy towards racism and other prejudices, and the police aren't looking out for Toons. I do get that, but the degree to which this pushes it, speaking as someone who was a child when I watched this, with authority figures all around, including the hero of the story, who just let this happen, and the only acknowledgement is that everyone's kind of just a little grossed out, That's the worst reaction, including from the hero of the story. That's the worst reaction you get from any out of this. There's no proper acknowledgement of how horrible this thing was that he just did. And before anyone tries to make the argument to me of, oh, well, that's the point, because it shows what second-class citizens Toons are, there are plenty of other things in this movie that already do that. I'm going to remind you, the age group that this is aimed at, to do it in this fashion is really gratuitous and brutal and pointless, but I still might have been okay with it if there had been justice for that shoe. And I think there's you don't even have to change hardly anything about the movie. I'm gonna tell you exactly how you could have done it. Would have been so easy. So here's something nobody ever thinks about. Shoes come in pairs. there is now a widowed shoe that was the other half of that pair. Now, first of all, that's never acknowledged either. And if you were trying to emphasize through this needless brutality, what second-rate citizens' tunes are and what a horrible thing this is, I would think point out the fact that there's now a widowed shoe would have been a good thing to emphasize and would have shown that this thing mattered more than a plot point to just have it die to establish how the dip works. So, first of all, you acknowledge that there is now a widowed shoe. There is another half. There is an incomplete pair. You show it, maybe not show it watching this happen. I think that might be too much. But like towards the end of the scene, see that it's off in a corner, sort of looking around a box, tear down the eye, and then it sneaks off in the warehouse. Now that is the same warehouse that the final showdown happens between Doom and Eddie. So what happens at the end of this movie? How does Eddie defeat Doom? He defeats Doom by grabbing this mallet thing that has a punch glove that comes out, and it hits the nozzle and the dip comes out, and that's the end of Judge Doom. Now, that mallet does get properly established, as these things do, actually in that same scene where the dipping occurs, but it's just a mallet. It's just a prop. It has no particular significance. Imagine how much more cathartic it would have been when Eddie was reaching around for something to fight back with. Instead of finding that mallet, his hand lands on the other shoe. And that shoe, establish it a little bit earlier in the scene that it's in the warehouse and that it's watching what's going on. Have that shoe get into Eddie's hand voluntarily. Have Eddie throw that shoe. Have that be the thing that sets off the dip. Have that shoe have its moment of justice. Have redemption for Eddie, because he didn't stop that thing that happened before, but now he can try and do this little thing to make it right. Justice for the shoe, for crying out loud. We had a whole hashtag and a movement with Stranger Things for justice for Barb. Justice for the shoe. Hashtag justice for cartoon shoe. So that's something in an otherwise really great movie that really bothers me. Kind of on a deeper level than these nitpicks usually do, but yeah, it is at the end of the day just one scene in an otherwise brilliant movie. So that is going to do it for this particular nitpick rant. What are your thoughts on this? Did I just ruin another movie for you? I've been accused of that a few times with this already. But in any case, let me know what your thoughts are. Drop them down in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, check me out on Twitter at Council of Geeks. Give a listen to the Council of Geeks podcast. It's on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher Radio. I'm one half of the Punch Like a Girl podcast. That is a presentation of the Fire and Water Podcast Network, fireandwaterpodcast.com. I know I'm talking really fast, but there's links for all this stuff below if you really want it. And until next time, this council is adjourned.